Thanks very much indeed. Speaker Justin Muturi, thank you very much for speaking to NTV exclusively tonight. Now, you have previously said categorically that it is not Parliament's sole responsibility to enact the two-thirds gender rule. But the Chief Justice has come out and advised President Uhuru Kenyatta to dissolve Parliament because of its failure to enact the rule. What is your immediate reaction to this?
Well, thank you, Radio, for having me this evening. My immediate reaction is that I think the Chief Justice ought to also put the issue of the gender rule in proper context. And even as he advises the President under Article 261(7), also appreciates where we are at as a country in the middle of a pandemic, which he has referred to. But more importantly, he should also he should have considered the fact that dissolution of Parliament is not just something that you just wake up and recommend. It has too many other ramifications. Among them, the Constitution itself requires that another election be held within 60 days. We've just been grappling with the issue of revenue sharing formula in the Senate just last week. We know the problems that the country is going through. Kenya Revenue Authority is reporting below expectation performance in revenue collections. All these should be put into context by the Chief Justice to understand that, yes, he says pain, but it is that small taxpayer, what we call the Wanjiku, who's going to bear the costs of doing a fresh election.
But the Chief Justice, as you say, has not just woken up and advised the President. He has made this recommendation based on Parliament's failed attempts to enact the two-thirds gender law and despite 4 orders. What is your response to that?
Those orders, they're talking about two-thirds gender rule. Kenya's electoral system is first past the post. And indeed, Article 81B of the Constitution also says that the electoral system shall ensure that not more than 2/3 of either gender is represented in elective public offices. Yeah? But who it is that gives the electoral system? It's not Parliament. The first past the post electoral system that we have in Kenya is given by the citizens of this country. They are the sovereign. It is a system that they have chosen for themselves. So I don't know how anybody, I've seen the statement, the statement from the Chief Justice. It makes reference to Article 81B and 27. But you see, for us, what has been important for us is to provide for representation of women, youth, persons with disability, marginalized and minorities, as required under Article 100. That bill passed through. It has gone through the National Assembly. It is at the Senate, awaiting second reading. That is the only available standalone legislation that we are making an attempt to see whether we can deal with the issue of gender parity. It's not easy in an electoral system where people go to compete. You cannot, of course, say that we are going to have to do 100 meters, and among the 7 people participating, the result is predetermined that Justice Muturi will be number 1. It can't be. So it is with an election in an election competition. So surely the Chief Justice, with tremendous respect, I think, has not applied, himself properly to all the concerns that ought to be considered. It is not the court orders were talking about enactment of a two-thirds gender gender role. We have grappled, even the courts themselves have not been able to even explain to us how would it look like in a situation, in a country where people go to compete on the basis of either a political party having nominated you or you running as an independent candidate. You cannot guarantee the results. Nobody seems to tell us how that can be done. To do a law, a standalone law, say these are 2,000 gender rules. So when we go to elections in the 290 constituencies, you must make sure that you elect about 97. I mean, it's not possible.
All right. The Constitution does not indicate a time frame during which this advice must be taken and that the President must dissolve Parliament. Based on the President's relationship with the Chief Justice, we have seen in the past court orders have been defied. Do you think that he will, even though the Constitution says that he shall, do you think that he will go ahead and dissolve Parliament?
I think it would be wrong for me to be presumptuous, for me to hazard a guess as to how the President is going to respond to the advice. It will not be fair, I think, on my part. But, well, it is advice. It is not a court order. This is advice. So there's no time frame about when the President should dissolve Parliament if he is persuaded to so do. But, these are some of the things that, a constitution is something that is living and, you must keep making adjustments to it from time to time. Now, we can see some of the challenges.
If indeed the President does dissolve Parliament, what does this mean? What will it look like? We know that it will have huge ramifications.
If it dissolves Parliament, within 60 days there must be another Parliament in place. It means that within that period, elections must be held, even in the midst of this pandemic, and also in the midst of an incompletely composed IEBC, which would mean maybe, I don't know how fast they can begin the procurement process for all the materials necessary to do the elections. Obviously, you and I will obviously show that the cost. Chief Justice are saying that we must persevere pain. Mm-hmm. I hope he is also ready to take that pain because it will, choices have consequences, as he has said, yes. But he has also made that choice. So, I don't know, maybe the Chief Justice will tell us how we are going to proceed from a situation of holding elections in 290 constituencies and 47 counties times 2 because of the Senate. It's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling, as you say. It will be a big headache for the sitting Parliament as we speak. The Chief Justice has made this decision based on petitions that have come forth. Do you think that he is acting solely on these petitions, or do you think this is perhaps his final push before he retires come January?
Well, I cannot obviously know what is going on in his mind, but of course he has appeared before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee recently and given an indication that you'll be taking his terminal leave on 12th of December, but leave office on 12th of January, but cautioned that even though I will be on terminal leave, I will still be the Chief Justice. Well, I think he's trying to show some muscle at this time. I don't know why. It is actually something unimaginable that somebody who's about to retire in a few months' time would want to plunge the country into some form of a constitutional crisis.
The argument is the failure to enact the two-thirds gender rule, which you have said clearly that it is not solely Parliament's responsibility, it is the state's responsibility. But why has it been so difficult for institutions to achieve a two-thirds gender rule?
Let me not speak for other institutions.
For Parliament then?
But for Parliament, simply because it is because of our electoral system. That surely the reason why we cannot be able to achieve it. But maybe the Chief Justice could tell us why he doesn't have it in the Supreme Court. He's the President of the Supreme Court. Does it have the two-thirds gender? Those positions are not elective, they are appointive. I would want him to tell the country why has he not been able to push for that in his own court, where he presides as the president. You know, but he's not the only institution. Actually, the Council of the Law Society, as president constituent.
And they have put forward a petition against Parliament.
Yes. As president constituent, and they are public body. It's not gender. There's no gender parity. I only see the president of the Law Society and I think one or two other men. So it can cut both ways. It can be the female gender being in the majority, or the male gender being a majority, but either way, it still does not comply with the two-thirds gender.
But what we more often than not see is a male majority. What does this say about Kenya and Kenyans and our leadership and the will to achieve the two-thirds gender rule? Is it possible in your view?
Not under the current, not for Parliament. I think not the way one would really want to say yes, but just wonder. Even the UK doesn't have that. The UK Parliament doesn't have that. It's not. They have not achieved that. Not more than 2,000 of either gender. They haven't. So it's something that I think we must allow it to evolve gradually. But more importantly for me is that there's not a single time in independent Kenya's history that there have not been women in Parliament. There have always been women. The numbers vary. In the 11th Parliament, we had 16 from the 290 single-member constituencies. Currently, we have 24. So there's been an increase of 8 between the last Parliament and the current Parliament. So it's something that you can see in the Senate, in the last Parliament, there wasn't a single elected senator. Today we have 2. So it's, just like at the Supreme Court advice in 2012, this principle was to be achieved or realized progressively. The only thing that I fault even that advisory opinion was to have put some dates, because there was going to be a general election in 2013, which was to be conducted under the first-past-the-post electoral system. How did the Supreme Court expect that in 2015 we'll have realized that gender principle? And people are going to elections. There was no mechanism by which that was going to be realized. But they put a date. They said by 2015. It's progressive, but by 2015, enact law.
All right, well, I guess progressive has a different meaning in many people's minds. The Chief Justice has said that he has taken this action to remind the electorate to hold their parliamentary representatives accountable. Do you think that's a fair statement? That's
a most unfair statement in that advisory. It is not the members of Parliament. It is the electorate itself which chooses the people they want to represent them. It is the sovereign. The electorate is the sovereign. So they choose the people they think best represent their interests. So to say that members of parliament will be held accountable, what are members of parliament supposed to do about an electoral system which cannot guarantee the achievement, as it is, of not more than 2/3 of either gender? I mean, it's not a member of parliament, really. That electoral system is something that should be taken to the electorate. We should actually test this thing. Does the electorate want that system? Proportion, because the only way you can achieve this is if you use proportional representation. But this first past the post, I'm sorry, I don't see it happening in a very long time.
This is an historic move by the Chief Justice to advise the President to dissolve the Parliament of Kenya. As the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, how are you feeling?
Well, you know, it's just normal.
Is it though?
Yeah. It's not, you know, those of us who have been used to seeing elections and things like those, elections should not worry anybody. My only concern is the timing, given the situation that the country is in, and how some of the institutions that would have to do certain mandatory things like the IEBC, where they look at the situation they are in, when we begin the process of procurement of materials and this before 60 days are over? That's the only thing. That's the only my concern is, and the implications really to the taxpayer. It's dire. That's my only worry, because I think the advisory did not take into account on a balance of probabilities, circumstances prevailing in the country. I think there should have been better judgment in what kind of advice to give.
All right.
Yeah.
Speaker Justin Muturi, that's all we have time for, but thank you so much for joining us on NTV and sharing your views.
Thank you very much, Wendy.
All right. Speaking to me exclusively, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, coming live from his home. Zainab Ismail, back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Smriti Vidyarthi, for that.